Are we ready for this nonsense? Are you ready? Cause I'm not. But here we fucking go.
What do we do about the homeless? This is one of the most vexing public policy problems we face. If you live in a big city, especially on the West Coast, you literally face it every day. And every day it seems to get worse. Why?
Why?
Let's start with a couple facts. First, the word itself is misleading. Homelessness is not primarily a housing problem, it's a human problem.
Oh.
The primary drivers of homelessness are drug addiction and mental illness.
I, I, but stop! Stop! Okay. So we're in the middle of a housing crisis in the United States, as well as most of the world right now. Oh no! Oh, hold on, it gets better. It gets better. So we know from the rising cost of housing, the current housing bubble that we're in right now, it is a seller's market. And the fact that wages haven't kept up with inflation or the cost of living, and we're currently in a housing bubble that's going to burst at any time. And we have a rising homelessness problem that, and this is where I would say correlation is causation here, due to the fact that people cannot afford housing. In Buffalo alone, and Buffalo, again, this is maybe anecdotal, but bear with me. In Buffalo, the standard cost of an apartment is anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200. Me and Squid are priced out of the market. We have been applying to public housing since last year. We are 110th on a waiting list for one of the public housing buildings that we're in, and we need to find a place to move into before February. Otherwise, we are going to be without an apartment. As somebody who has lived with homelessness for a lot of my life, and to be clear, I've talked about this a little before, but I haven't lived on the street, but I've lived in basements, I've couch surfed, anywhere that we could rest our heads that was with a roof, essentially. Because housing prices, even just for apartments, have gotten so astronomical that you can't afford it. People with jobs are sleeping in their cars and are otherwise functionally homeless because they don't make enough and they're working 2, 3, sometimes 4 jobs in order to make a living because the housing market is just too high for people. So when we talk about homelessness, it's important to recognize that homelessness and the homeless crisis, as well as wage stagnation, are directly hand in hand. It doesn't necessarily have to do with what Prager was saying here when it comes to drug addiction or mental illness. That is a part of it. But it's not as big as what Prager was saying. And we'll take a look at their sources after we watch this video so we can kind of see where they're coming from. But this is already a load of shit. And the fact that they're starting off like this is already disingenuous, and let's talk about this from a media theory perspective too. They're framing this as a personal responsibility problem, number one, and number two, they're blaming this as oh, those drug addicts and those people with mental illnesses, it's their fault that they're homeless, and if they just lift them up by their bootstraps, they can pull themselves out of this and find a home, which is already framing the problem as somebody who as if it's primarily their fault, but it's not a fault of the system that we're currently living in. So keep that in mind. That is how they are framing this video. I'll bet you $100 that that's how they're going to continue to frame this video going forward. Let me get caught up with chat real quick. Sorry, this is already getting under my skin, and we're only 30 seconds into the video. Coop says, when I hear anyone from America say, what do we do about the homeless? They treat people like a problem. Exactly. We're really facing homeless because Bound can't get any work and we can't pay. Right, exactly. And it's like, how are you supposed to... What's going on, Potato? How are you supposed to keep up? You can't. You can't. Right now, my partner Josh, is working full-time. I'm going to be doing a temporary adjunct professorship in the fall, where I'll be making not a ton of money, but a little bit of money, at least from August to December. We still don't have enough to afford an apartment. And we're talking, full-time income and part-time income. So don't tell me that this is an issue that's primarily facing drug addicts and people with mental illness, which, by the way, is a disgusting way to frame people with addiction problems or with mental illness issues. Okay, let's continue, shall we?
According to data from UCLA's California Policy Lab, approximately three-quarters of people living in cars, tents, and on the streets suffer from serious mental illness, drug addiction, or both.
All right. Potato's like, I want none of this shit. I came here for a good time, and now we're talking politics. Potato, don't worry about it. All right, so let's take a look. I know I said we're going to do their sources after the fact, but let's take a look at what the UCLA California policy actually says. You know what? I'm going to bring it up over here so we can look at it together, you and I. Come on, why isn't my tab working? Here we go. Okay, so this is what they linked to. This is a policy brief from 2019, so it's relatively recent. We'll give them that. Health conditions among unsheltered adults in the U.S. Little is known about the vulnerabilities and past experiences. So let's take a look. Health and behavioral health and trauma are significant contributing factors to loss of housing, particularly for unsheltered women. Unsheltered people continue to experience major and worsening health conditions while homeless. Gee, can we already see how they're framing their interpretation of the data and what the data is actually saying? Prager, you fucking nitwit. Hey, what's going on, Druid Punk? Love the name, by the way. Last time I checked, addicts and mentally ill people deserve shelter. Yes, exactly. Shelter housing should be a fucking human right, and it's not. We're all familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I'm assuming. And if you're not, let me know. We can talk about that really quickly. Shelter is the foundation of what you need to be physically, mentally, physiologically safe. Without shelter and food and water, you just cannot be a healthy person. You just cannot survive. So when we don't have enough shelter to meet the needs of the homeless population, of course they're going to develop problems. Of course they're going to, it's, again, I know we don't want to make the argument that correlation is causation, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you need shelter, you need food, you need water. This is the bare minimum of what you need to survive. And the way that PragerU is twisting this is pretty fucking disgusting. So let's see their findings real quick. So the PragerU video is saying, let's take a look again what they said.
According to data from UCLA's California Policy Lab, approximately three-quarters of people living in cars, tents, and on the streets suffer from serious mental illness, drug addiction, or both.
Okay, now let's take a look at what the data actually says, shall we? There are no human rights. Yeah, right, exactly. Look at this. Look at how they interpreted the data. The data actually says physical health conditions, mental health conditions, and substance abuse related loss of housing for sheltered and unsheltered adults. They pulled this data looking at this, and instead of interpreting it as, maybe because these people are unsheltered, that's why the rates of mental health and substance abuse are going up, because these people are desperate, they don't have any alternatives, they turn to drugs and this and that, or they develop mental health problems, or they're escaping abuse, or they're going through trauma. And this is, instead of looking at the data and honestly reporting it, they just go, oh no, it's they're homeless because of drug addiction or mental illness. Do you see how they're framing this? Do you see how they're framing this as this is a personal responsibility issue, as opposed to this is a societal problem that we all need to fix? I literally said it 5 minutes ago, and they're proving me right. I'm glad nobody took that bet against me, because you'll be owing me $100 So let's see. Health and behavioral health care needs and experiences of abuse and trauma are major factors in loss of housing among unsheltered people, most especially for sheltered women. And notice how the video does not even bring up trauma. It doesn't even bring up the fact that people, that's a lot of the driving factors of homelessness is abuse or previous trauma that people have experienced. People were more than 4 times as likely to report that physical health conditions had contributed to the loss of housing as sheltered people. Physical health conditions. Not even fucking mentioned in the video. Nearly 3 times as likely to report mental health conditions that contributed to loss of housing, more than 8 times as likely to report that use of drugs and alcohol has contributed. Now, again, I'm not saying that this doesn't happen. Obviously, it does. But it's not the primary factor, like they're framing that it is. And again, and the video does not touch, at least it hasn't so far, on the fact that it's trauma. Look at this graph. 80% of women, of unsheltered women, have experienced trauma. And they go on to say that reported abuse, unsheltered women, however, reported abuse and or trauma as the cause of their homelessness at much higher rates than unsheltered men or sheltered women. So the fact that they're not even taking a look at the trauma aspect is so fucking disingenuous that it makes me sick to my stomach. Unfucking real. So they're twisting. What's up, Dextro? Oh, we're definitely debunking it. Believe me. We're twisting the data to make it look like, oh, it's just those drug addicts' problem, when really it's a little more nuanced than that, as is most of the issues that Prager discusses. And even this is their source. Their source in the first fucking sentence of their key insights. These findings provide substantial evidence that unsheltered homelessness is a housing issue, a public health and healthcare issue, and a personal safety issue, and not what Prager was saying. The ultimate answer is to house all homeless individuals and prevent others from experiencing homelessness. Addressing the problem at the moment will require mobilization of efforts and resources from multiple sectors and systems, not just from programs currently dedicated to preventing and ending homelessness. So, for those people who were surveyed, health, behavioral health, and trauma are significant contributing factors to loss of housing, particularly for unsheltered women. And what does the video say? So, can somebody explain to me the discrepancy between what PragerU is saying and what their source is saying? Because it's a load of shit. They're deliberately misinterpreting California Policy Labs, or what was this, UCLA? California Policy Labs data to twist their own fucking words. They're deliberately misinterpreting the data so they can push their own narrative about how it's just because you have mental health issues or because you're a drug addict. So already this video is starting off in a framing that's incorrect. So when we're starting off with a framing that's just plain wrong, the rest of the video is just going to be hot fucking mess bullshit. So let's get into it. We already know that this is incorrect. This is part of it, but it's not the primary reason why people are homeless. But let's see what else they have to say, shall we?
Second, despite these conditions, the homeless actually make rational decisions about where they want to live. Not surprisingly, they move to the most permissive environment they can find.
What?
Make your city attractive for the homeless, and they'll beat a path to your doorway. The Venice Boulevard.
They'll beat a path to your doorway. Here's something that I don't think they're going to address. Come here. Come closer. Come closer. Climate. Let's talk about climate. I think I accidentally pushed forward. Let's talk about climate. When you're homeless, you don't want to live in an environment that has extreme temperatures. You don't want to be homeless in Buffalo. You don't want to be homeless in Florida or Texas. You don't want to be homeless in Canada. You don't want to be homeless in a place that has extreme temperatures. You want to be homeless in a place that you can at least be somewhat guaranteed that there's going to be, decent weather throughout the year. So why do you think so many people migrate to Seattle, to Oregon, to California? Because these places usually have fairly decent to nice weather. And again, this is purely anecdotal. Maybe I'm pulling it out of my ass. I don't have data in front of me to show. But it seems logical to me that if you're going to be homeless, you're not going to want to do so in a place where you're going to freeze your ass off or you're going to fucking sweat to death. And you're going to try to be in a place that is going to at least be somewhat safe from a climate, from a weather perspective. If they use that South Park episode as reference material, they might have. We'll check. We'll continue to check their sources. There's a reason why the term beach bum exists if you aren't allowed to sleep at a roof. Exactly. Coop fucking nails it. Oh, I'm sorry, Belle. Did you guys lose? So, again, it's the framing of, well, this is the homeless problem, and cities are allowing the homeless people. We've already seen pictures floating around the internet of anti-homeless policies from a majority of cities, like adding middle benches or middle armrest to benches so that people can't lay down. We've seen those spikes that they put underneath roadways and bridges so that people can't set up camps and rest. These are all very serious things that are happening so that the homeless population don't have a place to rest or to sleep or to even exist. So it's really less to do with permitting the homeless to be there as much as it is trying to sweep the problem under a rug. We're a minute into this video. A minute.
Attractive for the homeless, and they'll beat a path to your doorway. The Venice Boulevard underpass on the border of Los Angeles and Culver City brings home this point. It's one of thousands of concrete structures in Los Angeles County, but there's a curious detail. The Los Angeles side is full of tents, and the Culver City side is empty. Why? Because the two cities have different public policies. Los Angeles has effectively decriminalized public camping and drug consumption, while Culver City enforces the law.
All right, let's take a look at this, because I already know this is bullshit, and I'll tell you why. And again, it has to go back to their sources. So let's take a look. And again, you know what? As a matter of fact, I'll even put their sources in chat so you can follow along with me or double check, just so you know I'm not pulling this shit out of context. Sarcastic, you want to be timed out? All right, you're timed out, lady. So let's take a look at their source. Let me see here. Cities with more lenient policies on homelessness. Homeless people tend to move to more pervasive environments. Okay. Culver side is empty. More strictly enforces laws. Let's take a look at their source. Coop, stop spamming and hydrate. Okay, so from the LA Times. Neighboring cities are pushing homeless into LA, councilman alleged. One day after Los Angeles received confirmation of a major increase of its homeless population, they want to look into legal strategies to force nearby cities to provide shelter beds or allow people to sleep on their sidewalks. It's a legal sex that can compel these cities to comply with a federal court decision on homeless and sidewalk camping in Boise, Idaho. Oh, okay, so wait a minute. Hold on. The proposal, they said, would stop nearby cities from pushing homeless people into LA city boundaries. Listen, look at this! The U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled last year that homeless individuals may not be held criminally responsible for sleeping on government property when no alternative shelter is available. Bonin, whose council district touches in Santa Monica, Culver City, and El Segundo, I'm probably mispronouncing that, said that he believes many cities in the region are not complying with the decision. Instead of allowing people to sleep on their sidewalks, they are encouraging people or compelling people to move to the city of LA to do that. What's up, T-Dog? So, that's interesting. You see how, and what did PragerU say again?
Because the two cities have different public policies. Los Angeles has effectively decriminalized public camping and drug consumption, while Culver City enforces the law.
No, they're not enforcing the law, dipshit. They're actually doing quite the opposite. They're not complying with the fucking decision. If the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said that homeless individuals may not be held criminally responsible for sleeping on government property when no alternate substance or shelter is available, they are actually not, in fact, following the law. They're encouraging people, or in this case, what the article is saying, compelling people to move to L.A., where LA is following the law. So again, we have to look at the fucking framing here. Instead of one, reporting the truth, which apparently PragerU can't do, they're misinterpreting the data or deliberately twisting the data, which in this case, I think you can make an argument that they're doing so.
Why?
Why?
Because the two cities have different public policies. Los Angeles has effectively decriminalized public camping and drug consumption, while Culver City enforces the law.
Now, notice that this article doesn't say a fucking thing about drug consumption, at least from what I've seen. Let me continue to scroll down and see, because maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. LA had a 16% increase in its homeless population, excuse me, compared with last year. Plan and Build Wednesday acknowledges this is a phenomenon noticed by many Angelenos. When residents drive out of LA into other cities, they seek free-to-roll, if any, tents and encampments. Anti-poverty advocates. Where the hell that is? City of Los Angeles is obeying the court dictates, and the city across the street isn't. Again, I don't see a fucking thing here about drug consumption. So where are they pulling the drug consumption from? So again, just this isn't even a misinterpretation of the data. It's a flat out fucking lie. So I want somebody to come into this chat and tell me that PragerU is reporting news from an honest perspective and telling the truth. Because we've already debunked everything that we've seen in this fucking video, and it's only been 1:30 into the video. So don't fucking come in here and tell me that PragerU is doing this honestly or is doing this for truth. They're doing this to push fucking white, I keep saying white instead of right-wing, but, you know, either way, really. Right-wing interpretations and propaganda. That's what this is. That's what this is. What's up, Potato? Welcome back. I don't like the facts, I'm going to make up my own. Exactly. T-Dog says, F PragerU, they're full of shit. And for whatever reason I keep... Yeah, me too, which is weird. This is the type of guy who would use a scaled-down measuring tape to make his... Looks at it through a magnifying glass. No, it's fine. We stand all dick sizes in this chat, don't worry. So, again, just flat out fucking lie. Just flat out lying about what this Times article is saying. What a fucking shock. Let's continue.
This pattern that the homeless go where the policy environment is the most permissive can be seen up and down the West Coast. In San Francisco County, it's estimated that 30% of the homeless migrated there after becoming homeless somewhere else.
Again, if assuming that's true, which it might not be, because so far all of their sources that we've seen have been proving them the opposite of what they're claiming in this video, which is really fucking funny. Again, and we'll take a look at the source, but we're talking about weather. We're talking about climate. Who brings up the beach bum analogy and the beach bum probe? That's there for a reason. Sark, you didn't do it. It was OBS. Don't worry about it. So let me see what they say. More permissive policy environment in San Francisco, 30% of the homeless. All right, let's see what their source says. KQED. Oh. Homelessness in San Francisco is complex. Who would have thought? Whomst among us would have thought that homelessness is complex? Let's see what the article actually has to say. Cost of living has continued to rise in the Bay Area. Number of people living without a home. 9-county Bay Area, 34,000 people are experiencing homelessness. Not a small number. I mean, it's fucking terrible. Like we, in all seriousness, like the homelessness problem has something that's only been increasing again due to stagnated wages or just wages not rising, while the cost of living continues to rise exponentially. So when we price ourselves out of the market, not because of us, but because of what the housing market is doing, we're going to get a rise in homelessness. That just makes sense. What are the primary causes of homelessness in San Francisco? Wow, look at that! Look at this! Primary cause of homelessness, lost job. Alcohol or drug use, eviction, argument in front of family, mental health issues. So, okay, before we even address what this probable nonsense is, if we're looking at just the people who they surveyed for this article, the primary cause of homelessness is a lost job. Now, granted, alcohol or drug use does come in second, but look at where mental health issues lie. 5%. 5%. Meanwhile, 26% is because they lost their job. But what were they claiming here? That 30% of the homeless population migrated there? Okay, let's see Let's see if we can find that in here. What is San Francisco doing to help the homeless? Okay. Huh. So 70% of the people who are homeless became homeless while living in the Bay Area. Okay, so that's where your 30% comes from. Um, okay, see, here we go. When we deny that San Francisco is, as Fox News would say, a magnet for the homeless, or in this case, PragerU, if we don't talk about the actual facts, we really use an opportunity to deal with this population. So, again, once again, they are misinterpreting what the article is saying. PragerU, as is Fox News allegedly in this case, is saying that San Francisco is becoming a magnet for the homeless. But again, we're not talking about the reasons why they're being there, and I'll fucking bet that again it's because of weather and climate. Do you think people who are homeless want to leave where they live, especially if they're acclimated, especially if they have a job? Because surprise, a lot of people who are homeless work. A lot of people who are homeless go to school. I had to take out massive, massive student loans. I'm currently over $100,000 in student loan debt because if I didn't take out loans to pay for housing in college, I would have been fucking homeless. We don't talk about stuff like this because in America, at least, I can't speak for other countries, I don't mean to. In America, we talk about picking ourselves up over bootstraps. The Horatio Alger myth story. And it's a load of shit. This isn't a meritocracy. This isn't, just pick yourself up by bootstraps and you'd fine. It's about opportunity. It's about luck. It's about being in the right place at the right time. You can do everything right in your life. From, everything, I say right with, a bunch of quotation marks around the word white. But you can do everything that you're supposed to do. You can go to school, you can go to college, you can get a job, and you can still be homeless, and you can still face a lot of these problems because that's the way the world is. And it's not your fault. Even if you are a fucking even if you're somebody from PragerU, no. Even if you have mental health issues, that is something that you need to address and you need to work on, but that doesn't make you any less of a person or any less deserving of your humanity. That doesn't mean you don't deserve housing. That doesn't mean you don't deserve respect. It doesn't mean you don't deserve the basic needs that you need as a human being. It means you need help. And the way that they're framing this is that you bring your homelessness on you because of your mental health or your drug addiction problems, and that's not the case. It's just not. That his tune would change if he was homeless for a month. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and Coop makes up a good point. How many people show up at a place where it gets denied? Or your job falls through, or you lose your job. How about this past year with the COVID-19 pandemic, where people lost their jobs because they couldn't go to work, or because their product wasn't selling, or because the business was barely staying afloat as it was, and then due to the pandemic it collapsed. What are these people supposed to do? It's not their fault. But according to PragerU, it's their fault. Yeah, potato, absolutely. Not a week, and he'd be whistling a different story. No, Coop, I got you, man. Hey, Tarv, what's up? Hey, Blastic. How we doing today, guys? If we don't respect people, what does it say about us? Exactly. 100%. Exactly. And this is a bit of a tangent, but I fully believe it. There's this little saying, and I'm paraphrasing. You can judge a person's character based on how they treat waitstaff in a restaurant. And at first I was like, oh, that sounds kind of bullshit, whatever. But I've seen it come to I've seen it be true every single time. Um, I have, and I'm not talking like fancy restaurants or something, but like going to a fucking Applebee's or something. You know what I mean? Because that's all we can afford. Um, Pay attention to how people treat the wait staff because that'll tell you their personality right quick. If they treat them politely like a human being, you can bet that they probably are a pretty decent person. If they treat them like shit, run. Just run. Something's up with my right arm. Oh, what's going on, dude? You okay? Something that isn't brought up at all in these talking points, the housing bubble refuses to pop because of outside US influence. Rich people in other nations are buying up the properties and banks are buying up the properties. And see, I can't comment to that because I frankly I didn't know. So if that's the case, then again, it's still assuming that is the case. That's still not the fault of the people who are homeless, like PragerU is trying to frame it as. All right, so again, misinterpretation of the data. Let's go back to the video.
In the city of Seattle, that number is 51%. The San Francisco Chronicle estimates that hundreds of homeless individuals move to the Bay Area each year because of the perception that it is a sanctuary for people who are unwilling to participate in programs designed to get them off and keep them off a life in the streets.
All right, let's take a look at the source, because I'm gonna bet that this is also a misinterpretation of what the article says. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe they actually reported honestly, but let's take a look. Local sanctuary programs. Here we go. Did they just link us to the fucking... Wait! It doesn't even link to the article. Y'all, it doesn't even link to the fucking article. It links you back to PragerU's video. So how am I even supposed to take this talking point seriously when you can't so much as provide a fucking source except your own website? All right, let's take a... You know what? Let's pretend that they have a source and they just fucked up and they didn't put the URL. Let's take a look. Hold on. So San Francisco Chronicle. Let's search the quote and see if something comes up. Again. A civic disgrace. This is a fucking editorial! Is a fucking editorial! Folks, I can't. It's an editorial. That's why they didn't fucking link it. Because it's an editorial. Let's what? Let's go back and what did it say?
51%. The San Francisco Chronicle estimates that hundreds of homeless individuals move to the Bay Area each year because of the perception that it is a sanctuary for people who are unwilling to participate in programs designed to get them off and keep them off a life in the streets.
Okay. Now let me... Oops. I might control F, my bad. Get out of here. Perception that is a sanctuary. Okay, so... Perception... San Francisco, which is an influx of about 450 chronically homeless people a year, needs to set any presumption that... Here's the quote! Any perception that's a sanctuary for people who are unwilling to participate in programs designed to get them off and keep them off the streets. There's no fucking data here! It's an editorial! There's no data. I mean, yeah, he's quoting facts and figures, but there's no... Where in this article does it say that it's a fucking... Oh my god, chat, I can't with fucking PragerU. Look at this. Like, am I wrong? I trust, look, I'm not trying to sit here and butter you up, because I don't give a shit. Thank you! Tier 1 sub, 31 months. Thank you, Piccolo. You gotta kick it in the dick. It blows my mind that they're quoting this as if it's... And Piccolo, probably not a good time for you to be here because we're talking politics. We're debunking PragerU video right now about homelessness. But this isn't an article that is saying anything. It's an editorial about how homelessness sucks. And it does. To be fair, it does suck. Vanishes back into the night to eat wings. Hey, give me some of those wings, man. What the hell? Come back. Oh, Prager you! Holy shit. Meanwhile, just unfucking real. This popped up when I was looking for the other article. So the San Francisco Chronicle. No, it doesn't. An editorial did. Good job, Prager you. You did it.
At first glance, this would seem to make no sense. Why would an individual with no shelter or stable source of income move to one of the most expensive cities in the country?
No, I know. I wasn't saying anything. Just. Y'all.
But in the world of the homeless, it makes perfect sense.
Does it?
That's because they operate under a different set of incentives than the average citizen.
Okay. You know, alright. Stop. 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 No, they don't. And in case any PragerU assholes are watching this, let's I keep spelling mad love. Oh yeah, because again, Coop, we're relying on the negative. It probably did blast. we're relying on the negative stereotyping of homeless people because we can't show them as people who just don't have a roof. We have to show them as people who are very visibly poor and dirty and look like shit because that is the media stereotyping of what a homeless person looks like. So we can't just show them as individuals or as people who need help or housing. We have to show them as dirty and as different from the rest of us. I know most of you are already familiar with this, but let's talk really quick about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So in 1943, the theory of human motivation in his book Motivation and Personality, Maslow. He's a humanist and he believes that people have an inborn desire to be self-actualized, right? Which is meaning that like they can be all they can be. But in order for them to be self-actualized, they have more basic needs that have to be met, such as food, safety, love, self-esteem. These are physiological needs. You can't have self-actualization or belonging or community if your physiological needs aren't being met. And I'll take, I can show you this paragraph, the pyramid here. So at the top is self-actualization. That's the best that a person can strive for. But if we scroll down to the bottom of the pyramid, we can't have safety, we can't have community, we can't have esteem, we can't have any of this if we don't have a strong foundation that is showing and providing physiological needs, and that includes food, shelter, water, like I said, and rest. So when we talk about what people need to succeed, you can't possibly have a stable life if you don't have food, water, shelter, and sleep. You just can't. And again, I don't want to be the person that does correlation and causation, but it seems like a given to me that if you are unable to find a safe place in which to lay your head for the night every night, and that's stable, and that provides adequate shelter, nothing else in your life can fall into place. It just can't. That's why a lot of the homelessness policies have been shifting to what's called housing first. And I can pull this up later once we finish the video, God willing, we actually do. Originally it was the homeless policy in America, generally speaking, has been trying to treat the problem first. So if you have mental health issues, they try to treat that. If you have drug addiction, they try to treat that and then provide housing. But recently there's been a shift called housing first, where they provide the housing first and then they provide treatment if needed or job training, et cetera, so that people can get back on their feet. And that has proven to be a much better way to address the homeless population and the homeless, quote unquote problem, which it, I mean, say quote unquote because it is. If you provide people with housing, with stable housing, with shelter, then they can start to address the other underlying needs that they need help for, whether that's job training, rehab, mental health treatment, whatever. Housing first has been phenomenal, and it's something that we need to focus on. You have to have fucking shelter. I don't know how else to reframe this, or how often to reiterate this. You need shelter. Everybody needs shelter. Housing should be a fucking human right, and it's not. And when you're deficient in one of these needs, everything else up in the pyramid suffers. At least that's the argument that Maslow is making, and I honestly, I would agree. Like, I sound so frustrated. Like, do you see what I mean, chat? Like, am I talking out of my ass? What I was saying before Piccolo came in was like, I trust that if I was wrong about something, anybody in this chat would call me out and be like, well, Joan, that's not correct. Here's why. And I'd be like, oh, okay, thank you for correcting me. This is only showing them a step above how they talk about immigrants act like they're animals. Oh yeah, exactly. And it's another thing too. It's the concept of othering. And Blastic, I'm sorry, dude. It's it's. I think we all go through that from time to time, man. And I'm really sorry to see that. Um, it's also when we talk about othering, it's a way of separating, them from us, if that makes sense, right? So like, if we can quote unquote show that homeless people are different than us regular people, again, I'm saying this with like a million quotation marks, then we don't need to care about them as much. They did this to themselves. It's their problem. It's not our problem. It's not a society problem. It's their problem. That's how PragerU is framing this. Don't 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 give it to that. Just don't. Let's continue with the video, shall we? This imaging pisses me off so fucking much.
In a research survey of homeless migrants in Seattle, 15% said they came to access homeless services, 10% came for legal marijuana, and 16% were transients who were traveling or visiting when they decided to set up camp.
Transients, chat. Transients. Let's see what their source is. Survey results challenge stereotypes of Seattle's homeless population. Okay, here's a copy of the survey itself. Thank you very much. Oh, nope, I can't read that. Okay, All Home, the agency that coordinates homelessness efforts across the country, says it needs several numbers to crunch. Okay, so 48.9% of people living in the city of Seattle. 70% of those surveys said they became homeless after living in King County, which I don't know if that includes Seattle. If somebody's from that area, please let me know. 49% they're living in Seattle. Okay, I'm just not. 15% said they came here from another state or country. Okay. Okay. So what is that? I'm failing to see PragerU's point here. Like, what? Who cares? Most of the homeless people surveyed said they came here to be near family or friends, 35%, or for a job, 34%. On the other hand, 50% said they came here for homelessness services, nearly 10% they moved to Seattle because pop is legal here. Again, this is you're misinterpreting the data. So what? Let me go back and see what they said. Again, this fucking picture pisses me off so much.
In a research survey of homeless migrants in Seattle, 15% said they came to access homeless services.
Okay, so does that match with the data? 15% said they came here to access homeless services. Okay.
10% came for legal marijuana, and 16% were transients who were traveling or visiting when they decided to set up camp. But this dramatically...
Okay, see, and again, they're deliberately cherry picking the data, and they're not telling you most of the homeless people surveyed say they came here to be near family or friends or for a job. So 35 and 34% are a lot fucking higher than 15 and 10%, my dude. Marijuana's a drug. What? Marijuana is legal? Yeah. And again, this is literally the third fucking bullet point here. Defying another stereotype, the common belief that most homeless people are homeless by choice. 93% of survey respondents said that they would move into safe, affordable housing if it became available. 93%. Sarcastic says the only reason housing isn't a human right is because then no one would make money off it. America tends to be greedy. Oh yeah, because then what would the landlords do? Look, I don't smoke marijuana. I don't smoke. If marijuana is something that makes you happy, fucking whatever. I don't care. I don't judge. I don't give a shit. So, according to the AS report, this suggests that the traveler or nomadic sojourner does not represent a significant group. So, again, we're 2 minutes and 40 seconds into this 5 minute and 43 video, and almost actually every single data point that PragerU has presented has been either misinterpreted or just flat out lies. How can you trust anything from a source that skews or just flat out lies about data like this? And this is where a lot of people get their information from. They watch PragerU. They think that they're getting quality, unbiased information, when all you have to do is literally click on their sources and see sources that they provide, by the way, which is generous of them, and show that they're wrong. But people won't do that because they'll watch a video that's really slick and well presented, and they'll go, oh, well, these people have it together. They know what they're talking about. This is why when we talk about presentation is important. You're more likely to trust somebody who's in a suit and who's in a tie, who's dressed up, sort of formally and presently, over somebody who looks like a punk or who's in kind of like in street clothes. Because the person who looks more put together, it's the stereotype that they're going to be smarter, they're going to be more educated, they're going to know more about the subject. And that's what PragerU is doing, but with their videos. They're trying to be slick. They're trying to use all these really commonly used but well put together transitions and wipes and data sets and graphics and well put together people in suits and ties to give you bullshit. That's what it is. It's bullshit. I never trust a guy in a suit, right? So every single thing that we've seen from them has been bullshit so far. Let's see what more bullshit they can provide.
Understates the biggest draw of all: the de facto legalization of street camping, drug consumption, and property crime.
Really?
As former Seattle public safety
Who? The what now?
Legalization of street camping, drug consumption, and property crime.
So the de facto legalization of property crime? Could somebody point to me anywhere in the world where it's legal to commit property crime? And also, where did this point come from? Like, this is the point he just pulled out of his ass. Like, what? Maybe let's glean a little more insight. Let's keep watching.
As former Seattle public safety advisor Scott Lindsay has shown, the city is now home to a large population of homeless, prolific offenders. People who commit property crimes to feed their addictions, but are rarely held accountable for those crimes by the criminal justice system.
What? All right. What? What? Hold on. What? Homeless prolific offenders. Because you can't just be homeless. You gotta be a homeless prolific offender. What does that even mean?
Offenders. People who commit property crimes to feed their addictions, but are rarely held accountable for those crimes by the criminal justice system. So, is ever-increasing homelessness our inevitable future?
We're gonna put a pin in that for a second. Hold on. Hold the phone. Hold on. So we got the Seattle thing. Alright. Where does it say anything about... Okay, hold on. California has decriminalized thefts under $950. Let's see if this is true. Right. Now they're showing like crack and crack cocaine. Like it's again, it's the framing that homeless people are drug addicts and homeless people are people who don't want to be homeless. And that's not the fucking case. It's a fucking stereotype. And even if people, I'm sorry, I'm getting so pissed about this. Even if people are drug addicts and homeless, they still deserve help. They still deserve basic fucking humanity, Prager. Even if everything I said in this video has been true, and so far it hasn't, they're still fucking people. They're people who need help. New York Post, this is a trustworthy fucking article. Opinion! Another fucking opinion piece. I'm not playing this video, fuck off. The viral video was quasi-farcical. A thief in San Francisco Walgreens on Monday bounced on his bike as he skimmed it down the aisles, filling his black garbage bag with merchandise, looking like a larcen or a Santa Claus. Good. This is no coincidence. Permissive state and local policies and attitudes have signaled for thieves that San Francisco is a perfect shopping destination, a mecca for organized retail crime. Fuck out of here, New York Post. 2014, a statewide law, Proposition 47, reclassified nonviolent thefts as misdemeanors for stolen goods. See, okay, now notice how they framed this, right?
To a large population of homeless, prolific offenders. People who commit property crimes to feed their addictions, but are rarely held accountable for those crimes by the criminal justice system.
Proposition 47 reclassified nonviolent thefts as misdemeanors for stolen goods. That's not decriminalizing it, number one. Number two, this is, once again, a fucking opinion piece. There's no data, there's no... This is just bullshit. Hey, baby. It's Squid. Say hello to Squid. This goes even more into the what the fuck as they're pulling out editorials from any crime period that suits them. Oh, yeah. They don't care. Holy shit. I mean, to be fair, they don't bring it up in the video. Like, they're saying correlation is causation here, and it's not. This is again from an opinion piece, and there's no direct correlation between these two. This is just something that somebody's pulling out of their ass. And actually, let's take, because we skipped this, let's take a look at what Councilmember Larry Gossett said, right? Poop-covered sidewalks. Hosing poop-covered sidewalks might be racially insensitive. This is from 2017. A councilman in Seattle is reportedly opposed to hosing sidewalks that reek of excrement near a local courthouse because he fears that it might be racially insensitive. No, this is not a joke. This is from the National Review. King County Superior Court includes a homeless shelter and other social services organization. Unsanitary and politically frightening. Larry Gossett, that's the guy that I think Prager you brought up, said he didn't like the idea of power washing the sidewalks and brought back images of the use of hoses against civil rights activists. And also because maybe power hosing homeless people is bad. And again, this is a culture article. There's no data, there's no nothing. This is just somebody's fucking opinion. Yeah, you know, Blastic is a lot more concise than I am. They're like, you can't judge every homeless person like they're the same. That's exactly it. That's nail on the fucking head. Hi, baby. I hope I didn't wake you up. I'm sorry. This stuff is fucking wild, man.
So, is ever increasing homelessness our inevitable future?
And look at how they visually frame the homeless population, right? And it's not to say that there aren't people who look like this or who live like this. Yes, there are people who are living in camps. Yes, there are people who don't have access to things like showers or clothing or things like that. This is a reality of being homeless, and I can provide my own anecdotes later on down the line. But this isn't nearly indicative of the vast majority of homeless people in America. It's just not.
If our goal is to make life as attractive as possible for the home, so is ever increasing
My
homelessness
computer
our
doesn't want to play
inevitable
the video.
future? If our goal is to make life as attractive as possible for the homeless, the answer is yes.
What?
If our goal is to actually help the homeless, the answer is no.
Oh,
Houston Mayor Sylvester,
wait.
future?
Make life as attractive as
If our
possible?
goal is to make life as attractive as possible for the homeless, the answer is yes.
What does that mean? What does that even mean? By what? Providing them with housing? Yes, I mean that would be pretty attractive, actually. Give me the house or the apartment or the fucking whatever. Sark, I'm telling you, I'm right there with you. We're gonna try to breeze through the rest of this. We got 2 minutes.
If our goal is to actually help the homeless, the answer is no. Houston Mayor Sylvester
What does that
Turner
mean?
is a Democrat, but his approach
A
to
Democrat.
homelessness is a world apart from his counterparts in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle.
Okay.
It is simply not acceptable for people to live on the streets. It is not good for them, and it is not good for the city, Turner has said. Houston's policy is a perfect example of.
All right, let's it's taken 15 minutes. I know I'm this is why I want to be a teacher. We can watch a 5-minute video and fucking discuss it for an hour. This is what I do. And I hope I haven't like upset anybody, because that's not my MO here. The reason why we're debunking this, like we did with the Greg Ellis video last year, is because one, this is in my purview. This is something that I could talk about both from a professional level and from a personal level. There's a reason why I put actual former homeless person, because again, a lot of my childhood and a lot of my adult life has been spent homeless. I wasn't living on the street, like I said earlier, but we were couch surfing, we were living on people's floors, we were living on people's basements, we had bugs everywhere, because we didn't have a choice. Because my mother was a single parent who was trying to work and take care of 2 kids at the same time, and the housing was just too much money in Brooklyn, in New York City. So I can speak to being homeless and tell you that it's not a fucking joke. It's not a fucking game. It's not something that you know is a fun, glamorous thing to be in. It's fucking awful. I have moved over 35 times in my life. I don't know what it's like to be in a stable place. I don't know what it's like to know that I'm going to be in a place for more than a couple of years. I am 36 years old and I've moved almost as much time as I've been alive. Because that's the nature of income inequality in America. So for PragerU to turn around and to spout this nonstop bullshit gets under my skin, because this is clearly coming from the perspective of people who've never been homeless, who've never had to experience income insecurity, and who have nothing else better to do than to blame homeless people for the situation in life, when the vast majority of the time it is outside of their control because of societal reasons and because of the rise of housing and the lack of wages rising with it, and the lack of public housing availability, and the lack of social help that the GOP and the right wing are trying to gradually strip more and more. So don't fucking sit here and tell me that anything that PragerU says is worthy of being taken seriously, because as we've seen in this last hour, clearly it hasn't been. Just because something is in a pretty presentation does not mean it's true, or does not mean it accurately represents what is going on, because in this case, clearly we can see that it doesn't. And I'm sorry I'm going off on a soapbox about this, but it makes me extremely upset, again, because I used to be homeless and I could talk directly to the reasons why, you know, at least from what I've seen and from what I've experienced, why homelessness exists. And it's not a failing of the person, it's a failing of the fucking system. Kiss my ass, PragerU. For real. Sorry, I just give me a minute. Yeah, and I'm really sorry to see that plastic. I am. That's terrible. I hope your friend's okay. Sylvester Turner, a Democrat, has taken a far different approach to homelessness. Hold on. While those West Coast cities have implemented permissive policies related to homelessness and drug use, Houston has tightened up on its prohibition of public camping. All right, let's see what the source actually says, because I'm sure it's probably different. Sylvester Turner announced his homelessness housing plan. Like, look at this guy. You think this guy wants to live like this? Nobody wants to live like this. The guy needs help. These people are still people. Now, see, hold on. This says this plan calls for an expansion of the Way Home, a collaborative group that includes local government, school districts, and nonprofits created in 2012 with the goal of preventing and ending homelessness in Harris and Fort Bend counties. Turner called for an increasing number of the beds in regional shelter, I can't speak. The regional shelter system restricting encampments like Tent City by Sydney ordinance. The plan will also include an anti-panhandling awareness campaign, increased collaboration with charitable feeding groups, and a push for mental health and substance abuse resources. I'm committed to doing even more. It's simply not acceptable, blah, blah, blah. So, again, they're taking what he said and twisting it for their own fucking means.
No. Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner is a Democrat, but his approach to homelessness is a world apart from his counterparts in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle. It is simply not acceptable for people to live on the streets. It is not good for them, and it is not good for the city, Turner has said.
But notice how they're taking him out of context. He's committed to doing more. Now, granted, I don't know if I agree with his focus on beds in a regional shelter system as opposed to providing more homeless, buildings, more homeless housing, but you got to start somewhere. At least he's trying to do that, and I acknowledge him for doing that. But again, they're taking him out of context to push their own narrative. We will tackle this complicated issue, and we'll do it humanely with a meaningful approach that balances the needs of the homeless and the concerns of the neighborhoods they impact. Notice how they didn't put that quote in there. I wonder why. Can't imagine why. Now, again, do I necessarily agree with how he's going about this? From what I can tell, not really, but they're doing something.
Policy is a perfect example of what Turner calls a tough love approach. The city has built housing for the chronically homeless, formed a coalition of nonprofit partners, and lobbied the state government for more mental health and addiction services. At the same time, Turner has enforced a strict ban on public camping and promoted a citywide campaign to discourage citizens from giving money to panhandlers.
Can we just focus on this image for a minute and how fucked up it is to frame it like that? You know, something said they were gonna ban panhandling, and it's just an anti-panhandling awareness campaign. Now, again, do I think that that's a direction that they should go? No, but they're deliberately misinterpreting what is going on. It won't let me look at the website. Okay, so let's see here. Houston's policy, tough love, blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Office of the Mayor. Very nice picture. I like the fish lens going on here. A more holistic approach to reducing homelessness. Expedited efforts to permanently house the homeless, more shelter beds, new public health and safety regulations, anti-panhandling awareness. Okay. 100 public and private organizations, reduced homelessness by 57% in the last 5 years. Nice. Another 500 chronically homeless individuals to be placed in permanent supportive housing within 6 months. The mayor is calling upon apartment owners and landlords with vacant units to step up and be part of the solution. We're not going to abandon our most vulnerable. The city is pursuing creation of one of the most secure and professionally managed covered outdoor spaces, restroom facilities. where up to 75 individuals can stay temporarily. So what they're doing, shock, when I misinterpreted what they were doing, and I apologize for that, that's my fault. But what they're doing is creating housing. That's what they're doing. They're creating housing. Who would have thought that if you provide housing to people who are homeless, they wouldn't be homeless? But again, notice how PragerU isn't framing it like this.
It's not good for the city,
how they're
Turner
framing
has
it.
said. Houston's policy is a perfect example of what Turner calls a tough love approach. The city has built housing for the chronically homeless, formed a coalition of nonprofit partners, and lobbied the state government for more mental health and addiction services. At the same time, Turner has enforced a strict ban on public camping and promoted a citywide campaign to discourage citizens from giving money to panhandlers.
So, this isn't tough love, it's providing housing. And speaking of which, we're talking about the 10 things here. Weekly cleanups of encampments to address health and safety concerns. The Houston Police Department homeless outreach team is expanding. Another component is a new ordinance outlawing tents on public property. This ordinance will prohibit people from putting up tents, but will not make it illegal to sleep outdoors. So again, blatant fucking lie from PragerU. There'll be a 30-day transition period during which Houston Police Department's homeless outreach team will work to compassionately redirect people in encampments to housing alternatives. Now, this is an issue with police, and I won't get into that because it's a related, very related, but separate issue, and we could be here all day talking about how police interact with the homeless population. Different, related, but different ideal. But if we take what the Office of the Mayor is saying at face value from a 2017 article, it's illegal to sleep outdoors, or rather, it's outlawing tents on public property, but it's not illegal to sleep outdoors. And that directly, again, goes against what PragerU was saying.
At the same time, Turner has enforced a strict ban on public camping and promoted a citywide campaign to discourage citizens from giving money to panhandlers.
It will not make it illegal to sleep outdoors. So again, another fucking lie. Installing no camping signs at freeway underpasses and working to allow the city to have access to underpasses for parking and economic development. Takes aim at panhandling, new ordinance, burning destruction of roadways. And again, this is not really addressing the problem, but they're also providing housing. They're also providing alternatives to sleeping to the camp. So at least they are doing that. I thought I killed chat. I'm sorry. A city here in New Hampshire put up signs discouraging giving to panhandlers. A homeless person sued the city over it and won. Good for them. Good for them. So to make things worse about what he's saying here, a lot of people think that giving homeless a home is that they have to pay rent, but they won't get a job and will just buy drugs and have a place for a month. And this is from conversations of how people on the subject. And that's here's the thing though, right? That's a stereotype. It's a stereotype because when we continue to frame homeless people as drug addicts and as lazy layabouts or whatever the fuck the right is calling them, it continues to get propagated like that. It's like a meme, right? Like how you share a meme with people. It's just sort of the same thing here. So when we talk about things like tropes in the media or the way that people are representative, it's like a meme, essentially. So this meme has been spreading around for decades. 100 years or more, right? That this is what the homeless people will do. And really, the vast majority of homeless people just want a fucking place to live. Just want a place that they can afford to live in. Just want a place to live until they can get back on their feet. It's so fucking disgusting how they're framing this. It really is. It's gross. It's gross. It's gross.
The results are as instructive as they are stunning. Over the past 8 years, Houston has reduced its homeless population by 54%, while it has skyrocketed in West Coast cities. Different policies, different results. Where a Seattle politician opposes hosing down feces-covered sidewalks because hoses are racist, Houston fights in the courts for the right.
We just talked about this. Hi, baby.
Hello, Righteous Fury, baby.
Righteous Fury. What's this? Ooh. I got mushrooms. You want to say hi to chat?
Chat.
Did you? No, you shouldn't be eating that. That's
Thank you.
Okay. Folks, he took my pepperoni. My pep. Here, let me finish this garbage. I love you.
I'm gonna go lay back down.
You're gonna lay back down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sark, we're almost done. We're almost done. We're almost done. So you notice how they frame, if you can close the door on your way up, baby. So they
Policies, different results. Where a Seattle politician opposes hosing down feces-covered sidewalks because hoses are racist.
That's not what he said! That's not what hoses are racist, chat. It's not what he said, and we looked at the fucking article. We looked at the article. He didn't say hoses are racist. You know who said that? The person who wrote the article. Holy shit. Literally, holy shit.
Houston fights in the courts for the right to clean up encampments. Where California progressives push for more drug injection sites and have decriminalized thefts under $950.
No, they haven't.
Houston imposes consequences not.
No, they haven't. We already addressed the 950 thing. That's just bullshit. And then what does it say about? What does it say about injection sites? Did I miss something here? Hold on. Supervised injection sites. What does that mean? Again, they link to their own fucking. A law proposed by progressive California makers allowed for supervised injection sites where supporters insisted would reduce the law or normalize drug addiction. Let's see if this comes up with anything, because they don't provide a source. It just links back to themselves, because why would they provide a source? California delays considering supervised. Can I get like recent news on this, please? The proposed new law would allow for supervised injection sites in some California counties. Supporters say it would reduce drug overdoses, where critics say it would just normalize drug addiction. 81,000 people died of drug ODs in the U.S. from June 2019 to May 2020. I wonder what happened in 2020. Nothing important, I don't think. Proposed new law would allow for supervised injection sites in some California counties. There's no safe way to inject illicit drugs into your system. People are gonna drug. No matter how illegal you make it, people are gonna drug. So why not stick with the winners? Cute little byline there. I don't see anything wrong with this, but apparently there's been more recent news. Hold on. We'll wait until next year to continue considering a bill that would get opioid use as a place to inject drugs in supervised settings. Trained staff are available to help if they suffer accidental overdoses. Safe consumption sites are a proven strategy to save lives and help people into the recovery. They're illegal in the US, but legal in Canada. So already, again, Prager is fucking lying. The proposal is opposed by some law enforcement groups. His bill would require workers at the centers to try to get users into drug treatment programs or refer them to medical or mental health care or social services programs. So again, lying their fucking asses off. Who would have thought?
Cities. Different policies, different results. Where a Seattle politician opposes hosing down feces-covered sidewalks because hoses are racist.
Lie.
Houston fights in the courts for the right to clean up encampments.
Also a lie.
Where California progressives push for more drug injection sites and have decriminalized thefts under $950.
Lie and
Houston imposes
truth.
consequences not only for theft, but for aggressive panhandling, window washing, and other street obstructions.
And again, we talked about this. It's all bullshit.
As this Texas city has...
Let me read chat. Coop says, if they can get back on their feet, because that goes back to how shit our society is and how much we pay people compared to how much it costs to rent even a studio apartment. Oh yeah, we can talk about that in a minute too. Somebody remind me later. And this gets even deeper into the people who prey on homeless people, trying not to be homeless by being slumlords, trying to take rent for them so they live in a garage and control every aspect of their lives. Oh yeah, like, a big shock of shocks how PragerU doesn't talk about landlords or how rising housing costs or the fact that slumlords exist. No, it's strictly the homeless people's fault because they're drug addicts, right, PragerU?
Demonstrated, local leaders in cities of any size can meaningfully reduce homelessness through a strategy that mixes compassion with common sense enforcement. If cities stop allowing public encampments and open drug consumption
That's
and start prosecuting property
they
crimes,
do.
they will have much more success redirecting the homeless away from a life of self destruction and toward a life of hope through mental health
Oh
treatment,
my god.
drug rehab, and job training.
Oh my god.
That's what we all want, isn't it? So why don't we do it? I'm Christopher Rufo, Senior Fellow at the Manhattan Institute for Prager University.
Christopher Rufo, you're a fucking idiot. The last time I did one of these videos, we were talking about Greg Ellis and his whole incel all lives matter thing, and I made sure not to use ad hominem and call the guy a schmuck or something because that doesn't really address the argument. It's just me attacking somebody. In this case, I don't feel bad for doing it because nearly every single thing in this video has been a lie or has been misinterpretation of the data, or just providing sources that were editorials or opinion pieces, as opposed to providing sources that had data. So, you don't get my respect, Chris. You fucking lied through your teeth to present a narrative to show that people who are homeless are criminals and drug addicts. So, you can just kiss my fucking ass. Really, you can. You should be ashamed of yourself.
This video was made possible by a generous donation from the Thomas W. Smith Foundation.
Embarrassing.
Thank you for watching this video.
Embarrassing. This was a fucking train wreck. What do I have to look forward to when this video is over? Well, it's 7 o'clock. We'll play a little bit of Fallout for a palate little palate cleanser. So what does all this mean, chat? What does all this mean? Like I said, I've been homeless many times. And it has to do with the fact that wages and the cost of living have not met. Wages are still down here and the cost of living is here. It's just they just don't meet. And again, to turn around and to say I do have a face, I'm sorry. To turn around and say that your being homeless is strictly a you problem, or that the only people who are homeless, which is how PragerU is framing this, keep in mind, this is how they're framing it. I'm not putting words in their mouth. This is literally how they're framing the homeless problem. That you are homeless, according to PragerU, because you're a drug addict or because you have mental health problems. That is not nearly anywhere near the full story of why somebody's homeless, and it's not anywhere near the full story of of how to address the problem. It just isn't. I have spent we started at about 5:40, it's 7:10 p.m. I have spent the last almost 2 hours debunking a 5-minute video. To mostly to prove a point, but also to show how organizations like PragerU will deliberately misinterpret facts or just outright lie to you to push an agenda, to push their own propaganda. And in this case, if you can't trust a single 5-minute video where they talk about a problem as nuanced and as deep as the homelessness crisis that America is currently facing, how can you trust them in anything else that they produce? You can't. Frankly, if you're part of PragerU, if you believe this, you should be ashamed of yourself. Truly. Truly. Because this is embarrassing, and it's disgusting, and it's taking a very nuanced issue of the homelessness crisis that we currently have and reducing it down to drug and mental health problems, but it's so much more than that. Ridiculous. Being homeless sucks. And I haven't lived on the street, so I can't speak to that experience, and it's gonna be a lot worse than what I went through. leaps and bounds. Um, it's a terrible experience, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And being homeless as a kid is fucking terrible because you don't know when you're gonna get a bath or a shower next. You don't know if the place you're gonna live in is gonna have fucking roaches crawling all over you or bugs everywhere in the basement. You don't know if you're gonna have a decent place to put your head down. You don't know if you're gonna have food for the next day. And that's lasting trauma to a child. That's lasting trauma to anybody, but particularly to a child who's still in their brain development cycle. That shit sticks with you. I have PTSD to a lot of the things that I went through as a kid. There was a lot of abuse and there was a lot of neglect, and a lot of that also comes from the fact that we were chronically homeless. And to frame it the way that PragerU frames it, as if it is strictly the problem of drug addicts and people with mental health issue, one, is disingenuous. Two, it's disgusting, frankly. And three, it's nowhere near looking at the full story. And even, and again, and this has to be stressed, even if this was just an issue that affected drug addicts, which it isn't, but even if it was, drug addicts are still human beings and they still deserve help and they still deserve housing. You shouldn't get penalized for mistakes you've made. You shouldn't get penalized for the rest of your life for mistakes you've made. You're a fucking human being and you deserve humanity. You deserve humanity and you deserve rights and you deserve to be treated like a human person just as anybody else does, no matter what you're dealing with, no matter what mistakes you've made. There's always a chance to better yourself and to learn from what you've done and not be treated like how PragerU and Republicans and the right wing want you to be treated, which is inhumanely. You don't deserve that. You don't deserve that. You just don't. T-Dog says, I agree, we're all human and deserve to be treated equally. Exactly. Exactly. And something else that this video doesn't touch on too is the trauma aspect, which they just completely overlooked, despite the fact that it was one of the biggest highlights in the original article that they used for their source at the beginning of the video. And they don't talk about race, which is extremely telling, because a lot of the people who are in a homeless situation are from the black and brown population or from the indigenous population. And that's by purpose and that's by design, due to redlining and due to inequality when it comes to wealth and educational opportunity and everything else that people of color get fucked over with on a daily basis in this country. They didn't even talk about it. It wasn't even discussed or brought up. Good job, PragerU. Cheers to you. So yeah, that's the PragerU video. Holy shit.